Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Richie and this is Dowie After Dark. Today I want to speak to you about my journey going towards the LGT. Now if you don't know what the LGT is, it is basically the London Grand Tournament, which is a massive multi-hundred person player event down in London. And I think for Old World, I think we've got 60 players that are going to be going. So I'm quite excited to be able to play against a load of new people that I haven't played against before. If you are going, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to meet up and have a chat, like about the armies and what you're looking forward to playing against and what you're hoping you're not going to play against. I'm really excited to see the different types of armies that are going to be there, whether it's going to be the Scary Brett Peg list, or if it's going to be the Mortuary Cult list, or if everyone's going to be spamming Wood Elves. Now, you've probably guessed, but I'm going to be taking Dwarves. I'm going to carry on with my Drake Star list. I've made some slight adjustments and stuff, and I will be talking about that as we go forward. Like I said in one of the previous videos, I just want to try something new and go down a kind of an avenue that people haven't been using for the Dwarves out of, say, X-Force. I will get around to trying some X-Force stuff soon. It's just I've been mainly focused on Royal Clans and Grand Army. I played the Grand Army exclusively when the book dropped and until we got the journal. So I really enjoy some of the combos you can get through that. And the Royal Clans is just fun. There's nothing more fun than just throwing a massive unit up the board that's going to be strength 7 with the great axes. I have been playing around with some X-Force lists. Just in case you weren't aware, when I say X-Force, I mean Expeditionary Force, which is one of the journal armies for the Dwarves. So at my last event, I ended up going 3-2 with the Drake Star list, which was really good. I learned a lot from those games, and I think the adjustments that I've made to the list can really help me try and edge out either a 4-1, or even if the dice gods are with me, potentially go for a 5-0. I managed to get a couple of 5-0s with the Dwarves now, so it can definitely be done. If any of you have had any really good list ideas that you want me to see, please comment them down below. And if you've come up with any crazy combos that none of us are playing with that we really should be, please comment them as well. In my last event, I found that my list goes really, really well into combat armies. So as they're coming towards me, I can then just blast them off the field with the massive unit of Iron Drakes and Rangers with the handgunners giving support and the grudge throwers. Against shooting armies, I have to get up to the mid-board, which is absolutely fine with the anvil spells for the move again. But what I did really struggle against was the Chaos Dwarves. It's the 3-up ward against flaming, and then the toughness 7 or toughness 8 characters. So I'm wounding on 6s, where they're just saving on 3s against most of the flaming attack, which is just really, really annoying. But the problem you've got with any Old World army is the fact that you can make an army that's tailored to play against one specific force, or maybe even a couple of different playstyles, but then it's trying to encompass everyone that's going to be at the event. Can your army deal with Nomadic War? Challenging at you. Can your army deal with an Empire gun line? Can you deal with dragons? Can you even deal with Wood Elves? This is the problem that you're going to get. I mean, anyone can sit there and be like, right, so I'm playing against Bretonnians in this game, so I'm going to create an army that's got the Rune of Hesitation. I'm just going to stop all your charges, and I'm going to shoot you before you get to me. It's very, very difficult to be able to make an army that's going to be able to come against all comers. That's something that I think anyone who goes to tournaments kind of struggles with slightly. Like, even if you're playing against people in your local meta and they've only got a particular type of army, so say one of your friends has got a Vampire Counts army, then maybe you've played into the Scream list quite a bit, or a couple of your friends have got Bretonnians and Tomb Kings, and that's all you've played into. You then don't know all of the other armies and what they can do. Like with Nomadic War, for instance, they're going to be vanguarding their army up and then charging you either first turn or second turn. So you need to be a bit further back. Or if you haven't played against Tomb Kings, you don't know that you don't want to get too close to the caskets when they're going off. And also the Ushabti can move backwards. I have fell foul of the Ushabti walking backwards towards their caskets a couple of times, when my little short legs from my army's been trying to catch up to them. When you're trying to create an all-rounder list, you need to try and think of the stuff that you could potentially go into, and then how your army's going to focus around that. So say if you were playing against an Empire gun list, you need to get to them because they're not going to move. So you need to have at least one thing that's going to be able to get up the board quickly, or put pressure onto the enemy. Whether that be a fast-moving unit that gets yeeted up the board, or cannons, or grudge throwers. You just need to be able to put pressure onto the enemy from a distance. And then as you start to close in, you can then start to do some of your damage to them. If you're coming up against the Wood Elf Pillar of Fire spam, then you need to try and think what can take the damage at the front. I'd probably put the Iron Drakes up at the front because they get an inbuilt 5-up ward against flaming. Make sure that your units are stretched up enough so then the Pillar of Fire can't just ping through your entire army, because that is really, really annoying. That's happened a few times to me, and as soon as you played it a couple of times, you really start to learn to just kind of like fan out a little bit. That does happen against the Chaos casting list as well that Rob was using at the TSN, which is a really nice list. I think anything that can pump out between 4 and 5 pillars of fire a turn is just pretty gross to play against. Luckily with the dwarves, we do have a lot of ways to get ward saves, and with the Iron Drakes having the 5-up ward save against fire, they definitely need to be on the front line to unleash their firepower and at least take a little bit of brunt force from those flaming attacks. Or a full send army like the Bretonnians or the Nomadic War, or even if they're going to fling some fanatics at you. You've got to think about all of this before going into an event. This is really going to make you think about what's the core of your army going to be, how are your heroes going to impact your entire army, what is the point of your army on the battlefield. When you're writing a list, you really need to think about what the scenario rules are going to be, what the terrain's going to be, and how you want to play on the battlefield. My personal tactic, as you know, is to castle up in a corner, use the terrain to guard my flanks, and then try and force opponents into woods to slow down their movements as I redeploy and start shooting into them, and then get some counter charges in. Making sure that my BSB is in range of some of my other units to convey that 6-up ward that the Banner of Grugni gives from missile weapons. I try to make sure that everything in my list has a purpose. There's always got to be a reason from the ground up for everything in my army. And this starts with the heroes that I like to take. What purpose are they going to do? You need to think, what can deal with skirmishes? So in the dwarves, we've got the Fireball Fang. That is going to be your number one key for taking out skirmishes. If you're going to be playing against armies that have got evade, you need to try and shoot them with something that's a bit weaker and then hit them with the thing that's going to actually do the damage. So that's why I like a bit of worse shooting. So like the Thunderers are quite good at that. What's going to take the main brunt of the enemy? I like to have a big, strong unit on the front, whether that be your Iron Drakes, a unit of Hammerers, or some Iron Breakers, just anything that can hold an enemy charge, and then you can get pushed back and then push forward and start to grind them down. Nothing destroys a cavalry charge more than just getting blunted. Obviously, we've got to talk about the big bogeyman in the room, behemoths, and all the big gribblies. These guys are an absolute pain. You can get around them. The Iron Drakes have got strength 5, so against toughness 6, you're going to be wounded on 5s. If you can pump out enough of those shots a turn, you're going to end up doing damage to them. Then we have the artillery, the cannons, the grudge throwers, whichever of these you prefer. I personally prefer the grudge throwers, but I am going to be taking cannons to the LGT, which is going to be fun. So thinking about all of this and trying to work out exactly what I was going to do and my kind of like game plan going into different armies, I have come up with this list that I think is quite a good all-comers list. I don't think anyone's just going to be able to sit back and try and push out a draw with me. I also think that full send armies are going to be scared to come anywhere near me, to be perfectly honest. It's a really fun list. Been really enjoying kind of messing around with it and trying to do something a little bit different with the dwarves. I do understand that there's going to be a lot of people out there going, the dwarf gun line. And yes, they have always been like that. But you don't have to play them like that. It's just because I've been playing them with a combined arms for so long that I just wanted to kind of try something different. I've loved yeeting units across the board. It's been absolutely brilliant. I am working on a Slayer army as well, just to throw a load of points denial across the board, which is going to be hilarious. I don't think I've got a big enough brain to use the X-Force though. Every time that I try and use gyrocopters, just my positioning with them isn't great. So don't trust me for X-Force stuff, unfortunately. I was at an event recently and saw Rue, which is a great guy, using an X-Force army, and he did really well with it. And just watching him ping the gyrocopters around out of charge arcs was just absolutely brilliant. I don't think I'm clever enough for that. I just like to shoot stuff and hit it with an axe. That's kind of my my kind of play method. So thinking about all of this, I just wanted to make an army that is pretty well-rounded. I know obviously for a shooting army you can't go crazily well-rounded, but I think the dwarves being toughness 4, the way that you can take great weapons and shields on some of your missile units really does help them. Once the enemy gets to you, you can actually pump out a bit of damage as a close combat unit. Being close order as well really helps. Obviously the Rangers aren't, but the Thunderers and the Iron Drakes are. So you're getting that +1 combat res, which is always really handy once they get to you, because a lot of missile troops aren't, and that's a real strength for the dwarves. So in my mighty host of Karak Drak, I am taking my trusty BSB. He has been with me through many games, and it's a really fun playstyle that I like to use. You could use a king. I just like the fact that he can give out a ward save to the unit that he's in. Basically, the list is almost written around the BSB, because the unit's getting a 5-up ward and given a 6-up ward from shooting for any units that are near him. So you can almost conga line within that 6 just to get units in that as well. And he's usually a basis to any list that I start writing, just because that's my preferred play style. And I really rate the fact that you can get ward saves. So he's just my usual setup. So the Master Rune of Gromril, the Master Rune of Preservation. So on his banner, he's got the Master Rune of Grugni, the Master Rune of Battle for the +1 combat res, and then I'm trying out the Rune of Courage. So what a lot of armies will do is they'll throw terror causes at your biggest threat to try and make them panic and run. The Dwarves having a leadership of 9 base, but my general does have leadership 10, as we'll get to in a second. It is hard for them to run, but I guarantee that one turn that you need to stand and shoot and not just die, you will 100% roll an 11 or a 12. It's happened to me a couple of times. So the Rune of Courage is going to be in there just so you automatically pass the terror and fear checks. Fear, not so important, but the terror is a really, really big one. There's nothing worse than getting charged by a big gribbly and then having to run away and getting caught. So I really wanted to try this in because I haven't actually used it in a competitive game yet, but I think for a shooting list, it's very, very important. Then next up in the list, we've got the Fireball Thing. Everybody loves this guy. He's amazing. He's there to deal with skirmishes. He's there to kill anything that's coming back to kill the artillery, or even chipping a wound off anything that's coming a bit too close. I have actually managed to get this guy to do decent damage against T6 monsters as well. You've got a potential of 12 shots pumping out of him, hitting on 3s, and then you're wounding on 6s. So you can do quite a bit of damage. If any of you haven't seen what he does, he has the Rune of Accuracy, so he is always hitting on 3s. The Rune of Rapid Fire, so he's getting 2 shots in quick shot. And then the Master Rune of Bursting Flame. So any successful hit that's on a 3 then turns into 2d3 hits. I absolutely love this model in the game, and it is the bane to any skirmishing army. Next up, I'm taking the Anvil of Doom with the same Rune of Preservation that I've taken before. The reasoning for this is that it can't be multi-wounded. Cannons and other artillery will only be doing 1 wound to it a turn if they manage to wound it, and also any character that's got the Ogre Blade or anything that does d6 damage or d3 damage won't be able to do that to it. So it does make it stick around quite a long time. That, in addition to toughness 7, does keep it on the board for a bit longer. It does tend to struggle when things get into it in combat. I have tried upping the toughness and the fightiness of it with Runes of Fortitude and then Runes of Cleaving. This does really work, but then I think it's too much of a points investment just to put in something that then can't cast while it's in combat. Something I have changed from my previous iteration of the list onto this model is I've added the 2 Runes of Spellbreaking. This is to stop any close range magic that comes within the 24-inch bubble. So if anybody wants to get off a Plague of Rust or a Vile Tide onto my big unit that's going to be stood right in front of it, I'm just going to stop that straight away and give myself another turn where I can be doing maximum damage out. Then we've got Trusty Burlock. You know why I'm taking him. So he's going to be my general because he has leadership 10. So he has to be my general, unfortunately. His gun is absolutely useless. I didn't really do anything with it for the last 10 games that I've played with him. Pretty rubbish, so I wouldn't rely on that at all. The reason we're taking him is for his optics. This means that you don't suffer any negatives to shoot in for long range for the unit that he's in. So he's probably going to be in my Iron Drakes or the Rangers, but probably Iron Drakes. He's also going to be giving his Inspiring Presence aura of 12 inches because he's my general at leadership 10, which is really handy because I'm going to be bunched up in a corner probably, or bunched up in the middle of the board by some scenery that people can't flank me. And then his other abilities to give the Thunderers reroll 1s or to reroll one of the artillery dice for one of my war machines. So what I'd be doing is keeping one of my war machines up near him, and then one of my other ones, when I get to in a minute, does have some runes on it, which are going to help me out a little bit. But it does mean that I can move my war machines around and I don't need to rely on just either runes for them or just on him. But having that reroll is really, really handy. In the core, I've changed it to 19 Rangers. These are fully upgraded with the crossbows, throwing axes, shields, and great weapons, with a standard bearer and a musician, but no champion. My reasoning behind this unit is that they're either going to be setting up in a solid line guarding one of my flanks, or they're going to be dropping into an area that the opponent doesn't want to either go into, or create a funnel that my Iron Drakes and the Rangers can create a nice channel of fire to be able to try and damage the enemy unit. The reasoning behind the throwing axes is that they have quick shot. When your opponents are charging at you, a lot of them will try to get really close to you so that you can't use your stand and shoot. This is a valid tactic against most armies, but dwarves have a lot of access to quick shot. So if that dragon gets really close to you, gets inside its movement when it charges you, you can still throw your axes. You need to make sure that you can actually get line of sight to it to be able to stand and shoot. A stand and shoot is one of the dwarves' strongest weapons. With Dwarven crafted, and the fact that you don't get any long range modifiers for standing and shooting means that you can do some real damage when they start getting close to you. But you do need to make sure that you get line of sight to them, or you won't be able to shoot them, unfortunately. I did have a slightly bigger unit of this when I went to the last event. I've just dropped it down by 1 to try and trim some points, and 20 probably isn't needed. I'm going to be running these in either a big long line to get the attacks in, or if I'm playing against behemoths, I might just run them in 2 ranks so I can still shoot but not take up as much room on the board. I have also taken the champion out of this unit. The reason that I've taken a champion out is that heroes can just charge into the big line of 19 rangers, challenge out so that nothing can attack, or I lose the champion attacks. I'm going to be getting all of my attacks all the time. I'm not going to be able to do any challenge shenanigans, but realistically the rangers aren't there for that. So I do just want all of their great weapon attacks going into the unit that's coming into me. And with no champion in there, I don't have to worry about them offering a challenge, and I can just put all of my strength 5 attacks straight into them and try and deal some damage. Next up, we have 16 Thunderers. These are upgraded to have great weapons and shields, and also a musician. I haven't gone for a standard bearer on this unit because the Thunderers are there to probably die if they get into close combat. They're there to be a support unit, and I don't want to give away the extra points for the standard bearer if they get into combat. The musician's there just in case on the first turn that they get charged, they manage to do enough wounds in stand and shoot to be able to win the combat. Then I can either overrun or I can try and restrain and then pull back, and I get another 2 lots of shooting at the unit that's going to be charging into them. These I will either try to put on a hill at the backboard or having a line of 16, depending on what army I'm going to be playing against. If it's full send, I'm going to want as many shots as possible. I haven't gone for a champion in this unit for exactly the same reason. I don't want to lose any attacks in combat, and I also don't want any challenges happening. I want to force all of my attacks into that unit, and not taking a champion is a really good way to do that. So one of the biggest changes that I've made from my usual list to this list is I'm taking cannons. I don't really like the dwarf cannons anywhere near as much as the grudge throwers. I absolutely love the grudge throwers. I do appreciate the fact that a grudge thrower only has a 27% chance of direct hitting, but you need to realize that on the board, it's a very different game than statistics. A lot of the time you will just randomly get 3 direct hits in a row, and I love grudge throwers. I'm a massive advocate for them, but I want to try something different. I have run a load of games when I've used cannons and they are fun. I just prefer the grudge throwers. So the Wood Elves are coming up strong with their evade, and the Skaven Gutter Runner Clouds that can just evade when they're targeted with a grudge thrower. Something that doesn't actually target them, like a cannon, can be really good going into that. Also, Bretonnian Pegasus, you can try and line up a shot where you can try and take out multiple on the way through as well. So I'm excited to see what they can do on a competitive level. The only issue that I'm going to have is the fact that they are D3 wounds rather than D3+1, which means if you're playing against the Tomb King casket list, it's going to take 2 and you're rolling quite well to be able to kill 1 a turn. I mean, if you don't kill 1, they're just going to bring all of their wounds back. So it is going to be a little bit more tense than when using the grudge throwers, but I am a little bit excited to see more and more hits go through, because you do have some games with the grudge throwers where they just don't hit a thing. So as long as I can avoid those pesky misfires, hopefully we can do a bit of damage with the Dwarven artillery. One of them's going to have the Rune of Forging, but this one's probably going to be off on a flank to try and either force a unit to go down and deal with it, or just to pull some of their army into an annoying place where they don't want to go to. And then the other one is going to be near Burlock to get that reroll. So hopefully I don't roll 2 misfires in a row, or that would just be horrendous. We've all done it. We've all done it. The first game that I ever played with the Dwarves, when I took 3 cannons, I rolled 6 misfire dice in a row, rolled 2 1s and a 2, and my heart just sank. Like, it's horrible. So hopefully that doesn't happen at the LGT. Next up, we have the heart of the list. This is the Drake Star. So this is 19 Iron Drakes. So this unit is fully upgraded. It's got the Iron Warden with the Trollhammer Torpedo and the Cinderblast Bombs. It's got drilled, it's got a standard bearer and a musician, and the standard it's got on it is the Rune of Hesitation. So my plans with this unit is, if I'm playing against an army that doesn't have behemoths in it, they will be in a long line so I can get as many shots out as possible. Burlock's going to be in there. The BSB is going to be in there to give their buffs to the unit. So they're going to have a 5-up ward. They're always going to be hitting on 3s, even if they move, because of quick shot and then the optics as well. So they are going to be quite a scary little piece. They've got the Trollhammer Torpedo. Everybody knows what that does. Strength 8, AP 3, D3 damage. It's basically a cannon. So in this list, I've technically got 3 cannons, yeah? The Cinderblast Bombs are there for the stand and shoot. These are really good. If you're not taking them on your units, I really would suggest doing them. It's D6+1, Strength 5, AP 1 hits. And it hits on a 3 in stand and shoot. The reason it doesn't hit on a 2 is because it doesn't have Dwarf crafted. I don't know why it doesn't. It really should. I'm guessing it was made in Null. The biggest change that I made in the Iron Drakes from the previous list is I have added 1 more in, and also the Banner of Hesitation. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what the Banner of Hesitation does, it means that you do not get charge bonuses for charging into that unit. So Lances go, Orc Chopper goes, impact hits don't happen. So suddenly, if you're getting charged by 3 units of Bretonnian Knights, they're only going to be strength 3 on the charge with no AP. It doesn't sound that scary, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, it's not going to do anything against the big monsters. It does mean that I don't have to worry about them getting impact hit to death, or if any cavalry charge into them. So as you can see, it's not too much of a change from the list that I took a couple of weeks ago, but I think that I've managed to fine tune it enough that it can play into several different army types. If I'm playing into an Empire gun line, I can steadily walk up the board, and their cannons can only kill 1 dwarf a turn or put 1 wound onto the anvil, but I would probably be hiding the anvil behind an impassable bit of terrain, so they wouldn't be able to see me anyway. If I'm playing into heavy magic armies, I'm going to sit back within the 24-inch aura, and then use the Rune of Spellbreaking, and then start piling into them with all of my firepower. We've got plans going into the Wood Elves, try and fish out those evades with the Thunderers, and then shooting into them with the machine gun thing, or even potentially trying to go hyper aggressive with the Rangers, making sure they can't even evade out of range. It's actually quite funny when you just drop your Rangers right in front of their army, but you do need to try and win that scout roll off. I'm not going to run through my tactics too much for the event, because I do think there might be some people on there that see this, especially some of my mates, and then use it all against me. But the main point of this list is to create fire channels, walk up the board, do as much damage as possible, then when I stand and shoot, do as much damage as possible that way. This is going to sound really stupid because it is a gunline army, but I'm not a massive stationary player, so the Iron Drakes will be walking up the board, and I will probably try and be quite aggressive with the Rangers. I'm very excited to see what the cannons can do. I hope they manage to change my mind a little bit on the grudge throwers, because I am very, very pro grudge thrower. If any of you are at the LGT and you see me, please come and say hi. I've had some Dowie After Dark dice printed. If any of you come up to me, just ask for one. I'm more than happy to give the dice away just so you can have a look at them. Hopefully they roll well for you. Hopefully they roll well for me as well. I don't know. I really don't know how this list is going to do. The normal meta that I play into is quite evolving, and the stuff that people are probably going to be bringing to the LGT is probably going to be the Bretts, the Tomb Kings, and the big monster mash. Hopefully I can try and deal with that. It does mean I'm going to have to roll well though, so hopefully it can go okay. If I do end up playing against you at the event, I hope we have a really good game. If there are any Dowie players going to the event, please comment down below. I would be really interested to see what list that you're taking as well. Let me know what you think about my list as well. Do you think it's going to work, or do you think I'm just going to get absolutely destroyed by monsters? Right, so I'm going to show you some of the models that I'm going to be taking with me. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hopefully the list can do well at the LGT. If you're down at the LGT, please come say hi. I'd love to talk to you about Old World and Dwarves, or anything that's nerdy, to be perfectly honest. I will be doing a video about all of my games, and hopefully we can get a Dowie win. We'll see. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.